John Oliver, The Daily Show, and Brexit. How the Brexit debate perfectly illustrates why comedy news falls so painfully short of reality. So even though I'm in the States, I do have a lot of friends who live in the UK, and the UK is a fascinating place. Whether it be the fact that they tend to deal with social issues before us, or the fact that we use them consistently in my political science classes, I love British politics. For about a year, I regularly watched the PMQs, and I still find them enjoyable to watch. With all of that said, I'm very excited about the results of Brexit. Prior to the vote, I would spend time talking about the various points for leaving and the random musings on Brexit, while posting on my personal Facebook page. In nearly every conversation that I was a part of, there was consistently one video that was posted by the people who didn't think that Britain should leave. The video is linked below, but it's on John Oliver's Last Week Tonight. He illustrates a lot of the problems with the new pseudo-news comedy shows. Imagine, if you will, the last time you've watched the news. It's pretty boring. There's always some talking head saying something about something, and it's not really entertaining. But if you've seen The Daily Show, Last Week Tonight, shows like that, they take the news and they make it funny. The problem is, at the end of the day, they have to make it entertaining, and they have to make you want to watch it again. And they do that in 4 ways. A, they provide just enough truth that if someone were to do a quick Google search, they would see most of the buzzwords or the numbers that are listed. B, in order to make things funny, they often mischaracterize, whether intentionally or accidentally, the view of others. A great example of this is when The Daily Show interviewed Gavin McInnes. The link's below, and it's pretty interesting to watch. C is for confirmation bias. People seek out things to justify or reinforce their own beliefs. And so people watching the show probably already have the more left-leaning beliefs that the host has, and therefore when they see it, they're seeing people make fun of the same things that they would make fun of. It's kind of one of the reasons why a lot of people support Trump, because Trump says stuff that a lot of other people are thinking. D, anything they honestly discuss regarding a divergent opinion is typically dismissed with a joke. So that's what happens. And it's completely evident in the John Oliver clip that's been repeatedly circled around. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of these. Keep in mind I'm doing this under the things of fair use, which will be displayed here for a second. I'm also not trying to defend any bad arguments made by the opposing side, but this is simply an illustration about the pseudo-comedy news. So here's clip 1.
But Britain leaving it would be a huge destabilising decision, so you would expect the Brexit camp to have some pretty solid arguments. Unfortunately, many of them are bullshit.
So we saw in clip 1 that Oliver was on the tail end of a joke. He seriously states his opinion that leaving the EU would be a serious issue and could be destabilizing. But here's where he ramps up into his next joke, which is just a statement that their argument was BS. So after seriously stating his opinion, he then takes the other side's opinion and makes it into a joke by simply stating that their arguments are BS. While he does qualify his characterization of opposing arguments, he's delegitimized them with a blanket statement. Then, when we see this next part of the clip, we've got in our mind that their argument is BS.
One of the most popular involves the financial contributions that Britain makes to the EU.
We've got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take back control in this country of huge sums of money that we send every year to Brussels, about £350 million a week. We do not control.
That is former London Mayor Boris Johnson, a man with both the look and the economic insight of Bam Bam from the Flintstones.
So, we started with clip 2. Notice the language of Oliver. There are financial, quote-unquote, contributions. Not taxes, penalties, fines. They're contributions. Then there's a clip of Boris Johnson, which I admit is a pretty fair cut of Johnson's comments. What this does is it helps establish credibility so that they can later cut things out. Then Oliver accurately tells the audience about who it is, a former London mayor. This disarms the individuals. They've been reinforced with a legitimate clip, an informative commentary. Cue the attack. Boom. Ad hominem, claiming that Johnson looks like Bam Bam from the Flintstones, with a picture that makes him look a lot like Bam Bam. However, married to that arguably true comment is a slight against his economic knowledge, which is interesting considering that Oliver graduated from Cambridge with an English degree. He has no formal training in political science or economics, but is arguably a funny comedian who does political commentary. Now, let's look at Boris on the other hand. His father worked in the EU. He himself graduated with a degree from Oxford in ancient literature, basically English-ish, but also classical philosophy. He worked for multiple news organizations, was praised by Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, was a member of Parliament, eventually became the mayor of London, where he faced many financial issues and was just recently ousted by the newly elected Muslim mayor. But Oliver talks about politics on a TV show, so he must be right. Right?
He has even been driven around in a giant red bus for the last month with the words, "We send the EU £350 million a week" written on the side. But that number has been thoroughly debunked. It's actually about £190 million a week when you consider a rebate the UK receives and other money that the EU sends back. On top of which, if Britain does leave the EU, it may have to spend close to that amount just to access the common market.
Notice the use of the term even to further pile on Boris. But Oliver talks about the bus that Boris has been driving. Oliver's deflection of the facts, which is that the EU receives an estimated £350 million a week, is quick. He dismisses it and argues that it's only £190. So in comparison to the £350 million, the £190 seems like a lot smaller fund. Especially to people like us in the US, where millions of dollars is thrown around like nothing. You know, we're dealing with the trillions when it comes to our budget. Take all that away, first off, that's a ridiculous sums of money. And if you add it up, then it ends up being almost £10 billion a year. The BBC has a fascinating article about what the UK could do with £1 billion. Since we're dealing with £10 billion, we can really pick 10 things from it. Here is a small list, and you can check down below for the article if you wanted to maybe go and make your own list. With £10 billion, the UK could fund 26,000 nurses for a year, 12,000 hospital doctors for a year, all diagnostic imaging, including MRI scans and x-rays, and they would have extra money left over for a year. They could build 16,000 social homes. They could build 50,000 shared ownership homes. Being from the US, I'm not fully sure the difference in those, but I know that there's a housing crisis in the UK. All of that, we're only halfway there. They could guarantee 180,000 jobs at minimum wage for at least 30 hours a week. Well, I guess it's just 30 hours a week straight up. They could support 100,000 socially excluded families. They could universally offer 15 hours a week of childcare for 37 weeks of the year. Now, currently, only 40% of the most disadvantaged, and they have to have 2-year-olds, can be given that. They could fund 147,000 state pensions for a year. They can also give unemployment, or I guess it's job seekers allowance, to 300,000 people for a year. This is with the money that the UK gives the EU on a yearly basis. This is after you deduct all your rebates or your financial contributions that the EU gives back to the UK. I do have a couple honorable mentions, though. You could either do 27,000 primary or 22,000 secondary school teachers and have them work for a year for $1 billion. Or you could build 2 fully furnished flagship hospitals like the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The amount of money that Oliver essentially dismisses means a lot to the British economy. He argues that the difference is made up because the EU sends the money back, as if the EU is benevolently doing that. I'm forced to give you money and then you give me some back. That's not really a gift. You're simply returning something that you shouldn't have taken to begin with. And he closes off this section of the clip by arguing pure speculation to falsely equivocate and basically erase the number.
So what the bus should really say is, we actually send the EU £190 million a week, which as a proportion of our GDP makes sound fiscal sense. In fact, considering the benefits we reap in return, oh shit, we're running out of bus. Okay, bye-bye.
Oliver takes the $190 million a week and just states as facts in the form of a joke without any evidence, which the viewer accepts because they've been disarmed via humor and a general truthfulness, that it, quote, makes fiscal sense, end quote, and that the UK benefits from their membership in the EU. When it comes to news, go to the source when possible, do your research, and be skeptical of everyone. Thanks for watching. Maybe check out the BBC's thing. What are some things that you would fund? I know that a lot of the things that I mentioned are more socialist in nature, but hey, they're already pretty much down that path, and so I thought that might be a good argument because a lot of the people who vote Remain, they tend to be on the left. And so who knows? What are some things that you would fund if you were there? Cheers.